Hey there, this is Alex Kluge, and I'm really excited to share with you a very special recording, which is my 2024 market predictions. Now, I've done these the last few years, and I just want to say this before we get into the video. I do not have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future, but being an active agent in this marketplace, and also, as you know, watching these videos, I'm very in tune with the market stats and the dynamics in the marketplace. So I want to record this fun video that gives you my predictions for what's going to happen in 2024. Okay, so let's dive in right in. So 2023, I'm not going to spend too much time on this particular section, but just to summarize, like as we know, interest rates remain elevated for all of 2023. So that put a real big damper on sales volume, also new listings, active listings. Like it all basically came to a slow grinding halt in the sense that like when you compare it against other years, like 2023 was the lowest on record for sales volume dating all the way back to that 2002. Like that's pretty remarkable, right? And what's interesting, actually prices came up. Like average prices were up 3.2% year over year. So it's like interesting. Like a lot of people would have not predicted that we would have seen moderate increase in average price. But anyways, that's what's happened for 2023. And so I just want to give you some context of what to expect for 2024 because the market dynamics are shifting a little bit. And it's important to recognize that, especially as we look forward into the next 12 months. Okay, the sales volume. Last year, as you know, we had the lowest sales volume record for 66,000 sales for GTAY, which is remarkably low. Now, uh, it's not hard to predict that I think we're going to go higher than that since we were lower. But I just want to just say I'm going to actually share a number with you. So we saw 66K last year, 2022 the year before, which was a transitioning year as well. We saw, I think it was something like 73,000 or something like that for sales volume for GTA. So I'm predicting actually we're going to see a better number than 2022 for this year. We're going to see north of 75,000 sales for this year. It's a pretty bold prediction. Like a lot of economists are suggesting that we're going to have a slightly better year. So for me to suggest that we're going to have a 15% bump in sales volume is a pretty bold prediction. But I stand by it. That's what I think. I think a lot of this volume is going to come in the second half of 2024. And the reason is because I think we're going to start seeing some decline in interest rates on both the fixed and the variable side the latter half of this year. And I think that's going to spur market activity. But we'll get into some of that stuff shortly. Okay, so average price. As I just said earlier, like average prices came up 3.2%. And my prediction last year is that we would see basically flat prices. So like 3%, like that's not a huge increase by any means, certainly not compared to where we were in the 2010s to 2020 range. Like, we saw some pretty significant price increases. And obviously with higher interest rates and higher borrowing costs, that does soften the market, right? Like fewer people are buying, just unable to qualify for mortgages. The economy is slowing down, so like that all is obviously factoring in. Now, my prediction for 2024 is we're going to see a very similar average price increase. So I'm going to predict we're going to see an average price increase for this year somewhere between 4 to 5%. A little bit better than last year, not a significant increase, but I do think we're going to see prices go up. And if you've been following this video, like we've been noticing some trends in the marketplace for the last couple of months, which is suggesting that 2024 should be a better year than 2023. Okay, so now we're going to dive into region predictions. Like, what do I think is going to happen in the GTA? Now, in general, the GTA performs, plus or minus a couple basis points, like generally the same. Like, it's very unusual for like, let's say Durham to like completely outperform, let's say Peel region as an example. But, the pandemic did see some interesting shifts with respect to demand outside the GTA. And now one of the trends that we're seeing is that a lot of employers are asking their employees to come back into the office. So I think that's going to basically going to see a little bit of softening in the 905, not a huge dramatic shift by any means, but I do think we're going to see. My prediction for 2024 is that Toronto, like 416, is going to lead the real estate market for 2024 for the GTA. Like, I think it's going to be the best performing. And I'm not suggesting that it's going to like outperform by 10, 20%. That's not at all what I'm saying. But I think we're going to see an increase in demand for Toronto real estate. And we're going to see, basically, Durham, York, Peel, Halton, all really like kind of fall behind a little bit when it comes to performance, including average price increase in sales volume. But so I did predict the same thing for last year, if you remember the video, and it was true. Like, we saw Toronto this year, despite the year we've had, and despite the fact that condos were hit so hard in terms of demand. Like, demand was really like close to an all-time low when we're looking at sales volume, especially for downtown. But remarkably, freeholds, including semis, detached, and townhouses, performed quite well under the circumstance. So I'm suggesting Toronto's going to lead the pack when it comes to year performance for 2024. Okay, so condos, interesting, as I just talked about, is that the downtown condo market especially has been very, very slow. Like, there's a little bit of sign of revival, I would say, over the last, call it, 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. And I know we're recording this video at the end of January, but I'm not saying that the condo market's going to all of a sudden turn around right away. But what really we have to remember is that the condo market, there's two segments of the condo market. Um, there's end users and investors, right? Like, investors aren't really buying, condos en masse like they were, in the 2010s, like even 2020, 2021. Like, that's really not happening. Why? Because higher borrowing costs, right? Like, rents haven't caught up to the carrying costs. So, like, it's making it a little bit difficult to cash flow on condos. So we're not going to see investors jump back in just yet. However, on the end users, like anyone who's looking to live in the condo, like, it's actually a really good opportunity, because I think condos represent a really interesting upside for prices for this year. I think, really, condos are typically like a good entry product for anyone looking to get into the real estate market, and I think we're going to see that renewed interest, especially in the latter half this year with condos. So I think condos are going to be a very interesting option to monitor this year when it comes to demand, volume, and average price increase. But like last year, I do think the freehold market is going to be a little bit stronger than condos, just because we're not seeing that demand from investors just yet. But once we see rates start to decline a little bit more, then I think investors will start looking to come back, and especially as we see cap rates start to increase a little bit on these types of units. So anyway, so that's my prediction for condos for this coming year. Okay, months of inventory. Where we stood at the end of the year was somewhere around 3 months of inventory. So that basically tells us we're in a like balanced-ish market. Like, balanced usually is 3 to 4. Anything over 4 is like a buyer's market. So I think my prediction for this year is we're going to tilt back towards being into seller market territory. I'm not saying we're going to go below 2 months of inventory. That would be very irresponsible for me to suggest. But could we be somewhere around like 2.5 to like 2.7 months of inventory by the end of the year? I think that's really, really possible, and that means that not everything is going to be selling and multiple offers, but I think multiple offers is going to become a little bit more commonplace. Really wasn't that common last year, but I think we're going to start seeing a little bit more. Typically on entry level freeholds, we're going to see that certainly. Condos, perhaps, but for the most part, I think we're going to start seeing things tilting to a little bit towards sellers for this year. So we are in an opportunity now for buyers to negotiate a little bit with sellers. And depending on where we are interest rate wise, which is my next slide, that could change by year's end. Okay, interest rate. One of everyone's probably famous or most talked about factor when it comes to real estate is interest rates, which is like obvious, right? Because there's an inverse relationship typically with interest rates and real estate prices. And I think this year we're starting to see, well, certainly the Bank of Canada insinuate, or not insinuate, but they basically had said um, last week that we're pausing rates and we're now talking about when are we going to start cutting rates. Now that was a very bullish statement by the Bank of Canada, but they're certainly not making any statement as to when. Now, I think inflation is a little bit stickier than some are suggesting, meaning that rates probably going to remain elevated for a little longer than everyone's thinking or hoping. But we are going to start seeing declines this year in interest rate. There's no way that the Bank of Canada wants to see these rates at these levels, certainly for the whole year. So my prediction is in the latter half of this year, so July onwards, we're going to start seeing some rate cuts, both on the variable side and on the fixed side. Now, I do follow a lot of the real estate economists here in Canada with a lot of the big banks, and Ben Tal is one of my favorites with CIBC. He's predicting 150 basis point decrease, so 1.5% decrease on variable. I think it's a little bit aggressive. I'm going to go with 1% decline on or cuts on variable rate mortgages or the prime rate, I should say, just to clarify, for this coming year. So that's my prediction. Perhaps I'm a little conservative, but as I said, I think it really depends on what's happening with our economy. I think inflation's a little bit stickier, perhaps. Hopefully, I'm wrong, but we'll see where the data comes in over the next few months, and that'll signal where the Bank of Canada needs to be to start stimulating the economy if they need to. All right, so my final prediction of 2024, I like to make a fun prediction. So 2 years ago, I was absolutely correct on my Raptors prediction. Yay, Scotty Barnes. Last year, I was incredibly wrong on my Toronto Maple Leafs prediction. They did not make the Stanley Cup final despite my best hopes. But my final prediction for 2024 is about the Toronto Blue Jays. And as you all know, I'm a huge Jays fan, has been for a long time. But my prediction is not a good one if you're not a Jays fan. I think the Jays missed the playoffs this year. I know it's not great to say out loud, and certainly I hope it doesn't come true. But if I'm pragmatic and I want to make a Jays prediction, is their offseason has been disappointing. They haven't added that big bat like they suggested they would. So my prediction is they're going to fall a little bit flat. They're going to be a little disappointing this year and miss the playoffs. Anyways, hope I'm wrong, but that's what I'm about to predict. All right. So, well, thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate, everyone's support. We've been really seeing some increase in our subscriber rates. So please do us a favor and smash that like button, press like, turn on the notifications button so that you know when we release a new video, because we're hoping to increase our video output for this year with some more information for many of our clients. So again, if you have to reach out, feel free to do so on our social channels. And we look forward to seeing you in a few weeks' time when I go through the January 2024 market update. And that's going to be a really fascinating one because from what we're seeing right now, I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. Anyways, look forward to see you next month and have a good week.